This is the Candid podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, and thanks for tuning in. For this episode, I want to talk about an event that kind of polarized the United States back a couple months ago. And of course, we're talking about the Luigi Mangione situation where he unalived the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. His name was Brian Thompson, and how that event kind of polarized the country and really put people on two opposite sides of the spectrum emotionally. First off, I want to make one thing extremely clear before I move forward. What Luigi Mangione did was wrong. We're pretty sure he's going to get convicted of it. They have a lot of evidence on him. You can't just go around unaliving people for no reason. Even though some people believe this was a noble reason, it doesn't matter. Mangione broke the law, and he's probably going to end up spending the rest of his life in jail, which he should. I've talked about this kind of thing in other podcasts. The law is the law. You can't break it. It was a criminal act, and in this country, criminal acts can and should be punished. Again, I know some people don't agree with that because of the situation, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to make it very clear that's my stance. And I'm not using this episode to talk about whether what Mangione did was right or wrong or discuss laws and that kind of thing. The laws are the laws. Based on the letter of the law, what he did was wrong. And that's it. What I do want to talk about is the emotional response that it generated from our country, the United States, and how people were on one side or the other and some of the reasons why. So real quick, let's do a backstory. Luigi Mangione is accused of unaliving Brian Thompson, who at the time was the CEO of the American health company UnitedHealthcare. Brian was unalived by way of gunshots in Midtown Manhattan, New York City on December 4th, 2024. The incident occurred early in the morning outside an entrance to the New York Hilton Midtown Hotel. Thompson was in the city to attend an annual investors meeting for UnitedHealthcare's parent company. Mangione was subsequently arrested after about a 5-day manhunt carrying a weapon that matched the one used in the unaliving. He had a fake ID. He was also carrying a notebook that expressed hostility towards the health insurance industry and especially wealthy executives, according to what the federal prosecutors have said. And they also found shell casings with the words delay, deny, and depose written on them. These words apparently are similar to phrases used within the insurance and healthcare industry: delay, deny, defend. So I guess that was kind of his way of getting back at them by writing those on the shell casings and making a point of what he was trying to do. At the end of the day, Mangione did kind of become a sympathetic figure, and he was treated almost like Robin Hood. Like, some people legitimately look at him as a modern day Robin Hood. And as you all know, Robin Hood was somebody who robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. Although in this incident, I have to say this is a little bit different. Robin Hood did not unalive people. He was a thief. Whole nother subject, but it is kind of different. Apparently, Mangione has gotten so much support that he has accepted over $300,000 in donations for his legal defense, which I think is crazy, but it does point to how polarizing this is and how some people feel about this situation. So let's dive deeper into that. As I said, this incident definitely polarized the entire country in a few different ways. And I want to look at why and get more into the emotional response that people had. So the first issue or point of contention seems to center around who exactly is at fault for what happened. So apparently they did some polls, and most Americans believe health insurance profits and coverage denials share responsibility for Mangione unaliving the CEO, Brian Thompson, at that time. And again, he was almost looked at as like a Robin Hood figure, like, well, you guys brought this on yourself, and he's just coming to bring retribution. About 8 in 10 U.S. adults said the person who committed the unaliving has a great deal or a moderate amount of responsibility for Thompson not being here. And again, that's something that I found interesting. A great deal is a lot, but a moderate amount is kind of almost like 50-50. So again, some people are kind of hinting towards, I don't really necessarily think that he was all at fault. Kind of following this pattern of, well, UnitedHealthcare and Brian Thompson kind of brought this on itself. Another poll said 7 in 10 adults say that denials for health coverage by insurance companies or the profits that insurance companies make also bear at least a moderate amount of responsibility for Brian Thompson not being with us because of Mangione. Again, it just continues to follow that trend where they're saying, hey, you guys kind of did this to yourself. You kind of got what you had coming to you. So I want to look at, why do people feel this way? And what are some of the examples that have led people to come to this emotional conclusion? One of the issues is that UnitedHealthcare was using AI to decide healthcare cases. And based on that AI algorithm that they wrote, 90% of the cases were denied. 90%. Only 10% of cases that were filed or claims were approved. And it does touch on a larger issue that we're lacking human touch as a society. There's no more empathy. People in society more and more are being treated like numbers. Even if you look at things like Amazon, PayPal, all these other companies, when you try to get help from them, you're incentivized, or they're incentivized to try to keep you from reaching them. You have to go through all of these online chats in order to reach somebody. A lot of these companies have their phone numbers so far hidden in the site that you can't get to it, or you have to go through a whole online automated chat before you can even get to a number to call somebody. So health insurance and a lot of these other companies are employing less people in an effort to, number one, save money, number two, frustrate you, and number three, hope that you end up just giving up and saying, forget it, I'm not about to go through all this, or making you jump through ridiculous hoops just to get in touch with someone. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have become very angry about in life overall. You're no longer a person. You're just a number, and all we care about is getting as much money as we can out of you. But then when you actually need us or need our help, we're going to make you go through all these different things or try to frustrate you into giving up. Going back to UnitedHealthcare, there was a situation apparently with this doctor, and it's been documented. Her name is Elizabeth Potter. She's a specialist in reconstructive surgery for breast cancer patients who have had mastectomies. And apparently she went viral on TikTok because she said she literally had to step out of an operation. Now, there was another surgeon present, and she did have that surgeon continue, but she had to step out of an operation because health insurance representative from UnitedHealthcare was on the phone demanding proof that the stay for this patient was necessary. So she was recommending an overnight stay after this major surgery. And UnitedHealthcare was on the phone during the surgery saying, we want proof that she actually needs to stay one night. And subsequently, that stay, from what I understand, was actually denied. They denied it. So the doctor ended up saying, I scrubbed out of my case and I called UnitedHealthcare, and the gentleman said he needed more information about the patient. Potter said he wanted proof to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. Potter reportedly explained to the insurance representative that her patient had breast cancer, something he claims that he didn't know because someone else in a different department had that information and didn't give it to him. After this went viral, UnitedHealthcare came out and followed up on this claim and is now issuing a lawsuit against this doctor in an effort to force her to retract her statements, claiming that they're false and that the doctor's office is to blame. The doctor, Dr. Potter, has refused to stand down, and she's doubling down on this, saying what she said was true. And she's going to continue to speak out about the lunacy that is going on in the healthcare industry. So there's things like this going on that definitely don't make UnitedHealthcare look any better. And things like this are some of the reasons why people are angry at them. And again, in this situation, that woman's stay, I read up on it, was denied. They denied her stay after a major operation because they felt it wasn't justified. So when you look at all this kind of stuff, the question is, are people lacking in empathy, and is society going backwards? Or when you hear this kind of stuff, are people justified in their feelings? Do they have a right to feel this way when Luigi Mangione did what he did? Do people have a right to feel like, hey, that's sticking it to the company? So I want to dive a little bit deeper even into that and look at some cases where people were affected by UnitedHealthcare's ethics and other health companies like this, but we're just saying UnitedHealthcare. People are literally losing loved ones, mothers, fathers, children, wives, aunts, uncles, to places like UnitedHealthcare, a lot of times because of corporate greed and denied claims. That's just what it is. I'm not going to say that Brian Thompson was responsible for all of this. It's the company as a whole. And again, none of this is justification for what happened. We're just looking into why some people feel like, hey, he got what he deserved because he was a part of this company. There are people who are literally, in some cases, having to sit and watch loved ones, children, suffer and sometimes expire right in front of them because they were denied life-saving treatments by these greedy insurance companies who literally only care about profit margins. Again, UnitedHealthcare was under investigation for this AI that they developed that literally denies 90% of the claims. That's an algorithm that somebody programmed that way on purpose. That's not a mistake. That's not, oh, this went bad, or we didn't know the algorithm's picking up things incorrectly. No, you did it that way on purpose to deny 90% of claims. These people who have been affected by this are hurt, they're frustrated, and they're upset. So they look at this unaliving as the person possibly or company responsible for their pain finally getting to experience some themselves. And that's how some of these people look at it. I've never been in that situation, thank God. So I can't say how I would feel or tell them that their feelings are justified or unjustified. It's a very, very tough situation. I can't tell them that they're necessarily wrong when a person may have seen their own child expire or suffer great amounts of pain and agony and everything else just because a insurance company denied their claim to pad their pockets. Again, I'm going to reiterate, what Mangione did was wrong. It was a crime and he's going to pay for it. So I'm not excusing that. I'm referring to how people feel about this, who were affected by UnitedHealthcare's actions. I saw a LinkedIn post made by someone defending Brian, and I think the statements in this post, the comments, were a great example of how polarizing this case is. He said, basically, Brian Thompson went from Jewel, Iowa, to managing 140,000 employees and overseeing $280 billion of revenue at one of the world's most important companies. He played basketball in the trombone, got elected homecoming king, and worked in soybean fields and meat processing plants during summers. While studying at the University of Iowa, he met the woman who would become his wife, with whom he had 2 kids. By all accounts, he was smart, hardworking, funny, and a thoroughly decent man. This guy, not the person who unalived him in cold blood, was everything that's right and good about America and the American dream. So again, you have somebody on the other side who's saying, hey, this guy was everything that America's about, and you're looking at it all wrong. The criminal is the criminal, and he's wrong. We know Mangione's a criminal. We don't necessarily know for sure, I guess, that Brian Thompson was a criminal. So one of the responses to this LinkedIn post was, the company that he leads is under investigation for fraud and developing an AI that denied 90% of claims unjustly. Why don't we tell the heartwarming stories of the people his company single-handedly unalive by being evil and greedy? It takes an out-of-touch C-suite to have this kind of response to the people. Another person shared a personal example of why he didn't necessarily feel so bad about this whole situation. He said, insurance companies dictate the care Americans receive. This includes prescription medications. My wife went through 3 different appeals just to get a prescription medication. Months of my wife and her doctors arguing with the insurance company. They basically told her the only way they would cover the medication would be if she had a heart attack first. And the person who they considered expert, the insurance company, was an anesthesiologist. This makes no sense. Again, when you read that statement, that is absolutely nuts to hear. The insurance company is literally saying, hey, man, you've got to almost check out first before we can give you medication for this. You have to literally almost have a heart attack first before we'll help you out. That's crazy. Someone else also even posted a mugshot of Brian Thompson in the post and saying that he got arrested for drunk driving at some point and claimed that he wasn't necessarily a great person. I don't necessarily know how true that is, if that is what he got arrested for. I didn't go into a whole bunch of detail about that because at the end of the day, it really doesn't change that Mangione was wrong for what he did. But it does illustrate how people are looking at Brian Thompson and saying, well, this guy wasn't a great person. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't know the guy. And again, that's not what this is about. On the flip side of this, some people say that we don't know that Brian Thompson was solely responsible for what was going on. And that is true. Some within UnitedHealthcare claimed that he was trying to change things. Again, we will never know how true that is. They could be saying that because of what happened. And of course, they're trying to paint themselves in a good light, or it could actually be true. I don't know the man, so I can't say that. Maybe he was trying to change things, and unfortunately, he paid the price for other people's sins. There's only one person who knows that. Well, two. It's Brian Thompson and the man upstairs. Those are the only two people that know that. So I'm not going to add comments on that part or not, whether it's true or not, because I don't know. Other people have said that Brian Thompson was still a father and a husband, and now that family is without him forever. That is very true. His daughters, because I believe he has two daughters, have nothing to do with this. They didn't have anything to do with it. Now they're without dad forever. So that affects them simply because of things their father may or may not have been doing. So that is something to keep into perspective as well. Same thing with his wife. We don't know how much his wife knew about what he may or may not have been doing. And now she's raising kids on her own. So that is the flip side of the spectrum. And I understand when people feel like they've been affected by this, they have some emotions behind it and they're like, I don't care. I'm just thinking about my family. But the truth of the matter is that Brian did have a family and they're now going to be affected by this as well. So that is something to keep into context or keep in the back of your mind. Other people have said that this is also true. Two wrongs don't make a right. Unaliving Brian Thompson is not going to bring back all of the loved ones who are gone because of what UnitedHealthcare did. That is also true. That's why we have laws in this society to prevent people from trying to do the whole two wrongs don't make a right. Because at the end of the day, that's a great point. It's not going to bring back all of those people. But as I said, I do understand people on both sides of the spectrum having their emotions. So after I parse through all this stuff and look at it from both sides, I honestly don't know if I can answer the question if people are justified or not for what seems like a lack of empathy. It's complicated. It really is. And I can see both sides of the argument on the not having empathy part. Again, the criminal act is the criminal act. I'm not excusing that, but the fallout and how people feel about it, I can understand how people who were directly affected can feel a certain way. And I don't have the authority to tell them that they're wrong because I've never been in that situation. When somebody had to, or multiple people have had to bury loved ones because of corporate greed, I can't tell you that you're wrong for feeling a certain way. Now, maybe those feelings will fade after a while, or maybe they'll look at things and say, hey, you know, man, I know that I lost somebody and maybe I was just emotional in that time. I don't know. Maybe they'll feel like that for good. But I can't tell you how you should feel. And a good example that I can give, a good parallel, is imagine a homeless or a hungry kid who's living in a bad household. And a lot of times people say, oh, call CPS. And the CPS a lot of times won't do anything. Child Protective Services, a lot of times they will come out and they won't do anything. I've seen it. I've know other people that have experienced it. CPS won't do anything. So let's say this kid is essentially homeless, barely at home because there's no heat, no food. And this kid has to go out and steal to literally survive because essentially he's homeless, for lack of a better word. Again, he may have a home, but the home may not have heat. It may not have food. And he has to go out and provide for himself. And he's going out and stealing. Yes, what he's doing is wrong. 100%. You can't go out and steal. And let's say he's in a bad neighborhood where he's tried to ask neighbors for help and they don't want to help him out. These kind of situations happen. Yes, he's wrong for stealing. 100%. But he's doing what he has to do to survive. And how do any of you out there know how you'd react if you were in his shoes? That's why I'm saying I can't necessarily pass judgment on people having certain emotions because I haven't gone through what they're going through. You don't know what you would do if you were in that kid's shoes. He's doing what he has to do to survive. Yes, stealing is illegal, but he may not feel like he has any other choice. And hell, a lot of these women are out here doing only fools and selling their bodies and souls just to live a luxury lifestyle. They're not doing that to survive. They're doing that because they want to get way ahead and live like ballers and all this other kind of stuff. So stealing food when you're a young kid almost seems honorable at that point. Regardless, I'm just making the point that I can't pass judgment on anybody either way because I haven't been in this situation that some of these people are in. The bottom line is that Brian Thompson did lose his life in an illegal way, but few do seem to have remorse for it because they feel like he sat back and allowed innocent people to expire while he focused on making profits for the company. So some people look at him as an indirect unaliver, if you will, like you indirectly cause these things. And so they feel like justice was served. It reminds me of the Cain Velasquez situation. Cain Velasquez, one of the best MMA heavyweight fighters of all time. Not too long ago, a couple years ago, his son, young son, had some absolutely despicable things done to him by a man named Harry Goularte. I'm sure you all can understand. It's the worst thing that somebody can ever do to a child other than unaliving them. Cain Velasquez grabbed his .45 and went on a car chase, chasing this man down. He was in the car ahead of Cain, and Cain was firing rounds into this car trying to unalive this man. But Cain missed the man and hit the guy's family member instead. The person didn't expire. They're still alive, but obviously what Cain did was criminal. Cain was arrested. He was charged. He was in jail, I believe, for 8 months before he was able to get bail. But again, this was another incident that sparked a movement, and it sparked support around Cain because of the pure disgustingness of what this man did. And even though Cain did something that was against the law and he's soon to be sentenced for it, he is going to do time. I believe he took a plea deal, but Cain's still going to do some years in jail. He's going to do some time. And as disgusting as the act was, the law says you can't go and take the law into your own hands. But again, people felt like even though it was against the law, because of what this Harry Goularte guy did, hey, it's justified. I don't have a problem with it. You did this to a child, so you got what you had coming back to you in return. That situation is a little bit different than the UnitedHealthcare one because in this situation, we know Harry Goularte was directly responsible for what happened to Cain's son. In the Brian Thompson incident, we don't necessarily know that he was directly responsible. Yes, we can make assumptions, and yes, we can say, look, we pretty much know, but he did not directly physically cause what happened. Whereas in the Harry Goularte, it was. And again, because it was a child, people were like, look, I don't have a problem with it. Emotions were high. We all know the way society goes is that the worst thing you can do is anything to a kid. Then after that, it's the elderly. Then after that, it's women. And then finally, it's men. Nobody cares about us. You can do whatever you want to a dude and nobody really cares. They're like, whatever, move on. But it goes kids, elderly, and maybe even kids and elderly are kind of on the same level, but usually kids, elderly, women, men. So he did what is considered one of the worst acts, even in jail. This Harry Goularte guy is going to be cooked when he goes to jail. They treat people who do things to kids a certain way in jail. Whole nother subject, but anyway, let's move on. The even more unfortunate part about this whole situation with Mangione, UnitedHealthcare, and Brian Thompson is that Brian Thompson's gone. There's no coming back from that. Okay, he's gone and we'll never, ever, ever be able to bring him back. UnitedHealthcare could use this as a moment to clarify, reflect, and maybe even bring about change. Now, they have hired a new CEO, and that person claims that they will be trying to bring about change. We don't know if that's going to be the case or not. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think a lot of us have our doubts. They've had multiple opportunities to do something and they haven't. The fact of the matter is that even though he was the CEO, Brian is just like every other person. He's a cog in the wheel who got replaced and business moved on. They have appointed a new CEO, and the most immediate change, quote, that they'll probably do is get this CEO extra security. But business will go on as usual, is what I and most other people are thinking. A lot of other companies have kind of reacted, and instead of these other companies looking at themselves and saying, hey, people are tired, and maybe this is some kind of sign to start making some changes and not focus strictly on profit margins. No, what they did is say, okay, well, we're going to take all of our CEOs and C-suite people off the internet. We're going to take their pictures off the website and maybe get them some extra security. And that's probably the most amount of change that a lot of these companies are going to do. Again, we'll see if UnitedHealthcare actually makes change, but all of these companies operate the same way. Instead of using this moment to have some introspection, they'll just blame fanaticism or mental health issues or whatever else on what's going on instead of looking at themselves in the mirror and seeing that maybe they're part of it. And that's what the strange part of this is a lot of issues like this could very well increase, and UnitedHealthcare and other companies like them could be one of the causes of it. You keep denying claims for people who need mental help, and you're going to get more people who have mental issues out on the street running wild. So UnitedHealthcare could, in a way, and again, other companies like them, could very well be helping to create the issues that caused this tragedy in the first place. It's just something to think about. To wrap all of this up, as I kind of talk all this out, there's definitely a layer of complexity when it comes to people's reactions. On one hand, if you look at the good book, the good old Bible, the good book, it talks about forgiving your neighbor. I know there's certain parts in the Old Testament that talk about an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But again, that's Old Testament, and I ain't got time to explain all of that. The New Testament, and Jesus talked about forgiveness, loving people, but that's not necessarily always how everybody operates. And I have a person that I knew who literally forgave somebody for unaliving his son, and it was on purpose. And this guy eventually said, I have to forgive him and get over it. Not everybody can do that. There are other people who have forgiven and become friends with people who've unalived a loved one, not just forgiven, they've become friends with that person eventually. But I'm sure when the emotions were high when it first happened, they probably hated that person. But they've been able to get past that. On the other hand, though, I can understand how your emotions can harden you and make you feel callous towards somebody who you felt was being callous towards you. It's not a one size fits all. Not everything is always black and white. All I hope is that despite my apprehensions that this tragedy does have some kind of ripple effect and the whole world starts to have a bit more empathy just in all areas, not necessarily just this kind of situation or people being unalived and things like that, just having more empathy in how we live, how we do business, how we interact with each other, so that we can continue pushing humanity forwards and not backwards. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, I ask that you please like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. I'm trying to continue to build this channel and bring you all good content. So all of your likes, subscriptions, and comments really help me out a lot. I'm continuing to move onwards and hopefully upwards. That's going to do it for this one. As always, I'll catch you on the next one.